Welcome to Lucas Brews. Today I'll be doing a time lapse of building the ICM Po-2VS night bomber. To start off with, the instructions were very clear and easy to read and contained a little blurb on the Po-2 along with a rigging guide, the colour schemes for 4 aircraft, some from the famous Night Witches squadron. The parts come on 3 sprues, one of them clear. The quality of the details is very crisp and there was virtually no flashing. The first step was to build the cockpit. The construction was easy and the detailing was decent. The control columns and the pilot and rear gunner's seats are attached to the wing and are quite nicely detailed. The frame for the chairs were tricky to build due to their small size. The frame detail was very crisp and clean and looks very good. I then painted the interior XF22 Tamiya RLM grey on the sides and the floor. Unfortunately, my first layer was too thick on the instrument panels, and the paint softened the nice crisp details of the dials, making it harder to bring out with dry brushing and pin washing later on. I then used XF1 black for the seats, control sticks, and the instrument panels. Based on the reference photos I had, I decided to paint the seat frames white. The frames were easy to paint neatly by dry brushing due to their really raised details, and looked very good when finished. Tamiya XF16 flat aluminium was used for the ribs and some of the switches inside the Po-2's cockpit. Red and yellow and blue were also used for the engine controls. After dry brushing the instrument panel with white, I then used a black pin wash around the entire cockpit to bring out the details and add a little bit of weathering to the appearance. I made a representation of the fuel tank by painting a piece of card yellow and sticking it at the pilot's feet. I also used flat earth for some of the pouches for holding maps. The 2 fuselage halves and cockpit and wings went together really well with almost no gaps. The only issue I had was the seats having a very low contact point, which meant it was hard to keep them upright from the floor. While the halves dried, I also added on the small details such as the control cables and pulleys. The cowling and rudder fitted really well, however the elevator was tricky to get to stay in place and keep center. The struts for the elevator were some of the most difficult parts in the kit due to them being difficult to remove without breaking, and they didn't quite fit thanks to the elevator not quite sitting in the center. After dry fitting and then gluing the undercarriage, I attached the wheels. The undercarriage fitted very snugly in place. I also sanded the bottom of the wheels to give them a weighted effect. The engine was very easy to assemble and the details were very nice and clear. While the engine dried, I fitted the bomb racks to the wings and attached the rear machine gun. Following this, I then attached the upper wing, which was a bit of a difficult process due to getting the struts to line up perfectly for both wings and face in the correct direction. The exhaust proved to be very tricky to assemble due to the unevenness and odd arrangement with 2 of the cylinders sharing 1 manifold, which is not easy to see in the instructions and looks a bit odd. Once the engine was attached, I began to use Tamiya acrylic paints to paint the aircraft. I tried to do 3 thin layers of paint for each colour. I chose to do a Night Witch scheme which featured a standard Soviet colour scheme of XF23 light blue on the underside and the struts and upper side of the wings and fuselage with XF58 olive green. I minimised brush strokes by using the biggest brush head for the surface possible and by gently spreading the slightly wetted down paint across the wings before going over in the direction of the airflow. I used a smaller brush to access the struts and the landing gear hub. This particular Po-2 had a camo pattern on the green surface, which I painted using Tamiya XF17C blue, which produces a blackish colour often seen on Soviet aircraft. I paint an outline for the larger areas of black and then fill them in, following the direction of the airflow over the wings and body of the aircraft. After another coat of all 3 colours, it was time to do the small details. I removed the machine gun and painted it a large mix of colours including flat aluminium for the barrel, black and interior green, and red for the ammo box. Flat aluminium was also used on the cylinders for the engine, the tail skid, landing lights, and was also stippled on the metal surfaces of the engine cowling and hinges to create a weathered appearance of chipped metal. I painted the exhausts gold and used black for the tyres, and also as a very thick pin wash on the engine and the exhaust to create the correct colour and give the impression of oil stains and streaks. The tyres received several layers of black coat, and then, with the aircraft painted, I applied the water slide decals. There wasn't any smaller decals, just the markings and roundels for the aircraft. I used a Tamiya decal adhesive to seal and bond the decals to the aircraft. The decal quality was nice, with no noticeable tearing or silvering. After applying the decals, I gently wipe away the excess water and apply the adhesive. While the decals dried, I finished the machine gun and painted the cockpit trim red-brown. I used a pin wash of black on the underside and upper side surfaces of the wing to try and produce a weathered effect. The effect was a bit stronger than I would have liked, but still good. I also used a bit of flat brown on the tyres to produce a dirty effect, applied the machine gun and the canopy, and with that the model was completed. Overall, the tooling was very good and clean, and the details were pretty good. Generally it was easy to build, except for the fiddly elevator, struts and exhaust. The result is, in my opinion, a very nice model of the iconic Soviet Po-2. I was very happy with mine, and being the second type I built from ICM, I hope to learn rigging one day and rig them both eventually. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know what you guys think of the format of this build video, and as always, like, comment and subscribe for more model builds and stop motions.